All right, ready to dive deep? Today, it's all about Virginia wine.
Virginia wine.
You heard right. Top tier stuff, no joke.
Ah, interesting.
We've got a guidebook here and some seriously in-depth excerpts all about what makes this region tick.
Okay.
This isn't just about tasting notes. We're going beyond that.
Gotcha.
We're going to uncover what makes Virginia wine such a phenomenon. It's becoming a big deal,
Yeah.
So buckle up.
All right. I'm ready. So what's the first thing that surprised you when you were looking into all this?
Honestly, the history.
Yeah. It's a lot older than people think.
Way older.
I mean, we're talking the 1600s.
Wait, seriously, the 1600s?
Yep. Colonists brought those European vines over, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Thinking it would be easy, huh?
Exactly. But Virginia's climate, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly a smooth ride.
And some nasty vine diseases didn't help.
Oh, those were brutal.
Hmm.
So, yeah, the whole easy success thing, not so much.
Yeah, the real comeback story didn't start till the late 20th century.
It makes you think,
It does. This isn't some trendy new wine scene. It's built on, centuries of trial and error.
you got it. And you know what? Those early struggles, they forced Virginia winemakers to get creative. They couldn't just copy Europe. They had to adapt, experiment.
Really understand what worked here.
Exactly.
So that leads us to this word we always hear about, terroir. But what does that really mean?
Dirt, climate, the whole shebang. But in Virginia, it's like next level.
You've got the Blue Ridge Mountains on one side, Chesapeake Bay on the other.
And in between, this
Wow.
crazy tapestry of microclimates, different soil types, all kinds of stuff. Some spots are perfect for those delicate whites, others for the bold reds. It's wild.
So you can literally taste the geography in the glass.
Oh, absolutely. And those early setbacks we talked about, they pushed Virginia winemakers to think outside the box. Forget just Chardonnay and Cabernet. They've been trying all sorts of grapes you won't find as easily elsewhere.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
Cabernet Franc is the rock star. Loves Virginia's climate, gives you these elegant wines, cherry, spice, interverbs.
Sounds delicious.
But then you've got things like Tennant, from France originally, super robust.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
And Norton, historic American grape, makes these deep, earthy wines, totally unique.
See, this is why I love deep dives, stuff you never just stumble across.
You said it.
But it's not just the grapes, right? You
No.
mentioned Virginia winemakers are leading the way in sustainability, too.
Huge emphasis on that.
Mm.
Organic, biodynamic, you name it, they're doing it. They take that connection to the land seriously.
Okay, hold on. Back up a sec.
Yeah.
When you say biodynamic, what does that actually look like in the vineyard?
It's about seeing the whole vineyard as this living, breathing system.
Mhm.
They use specific compost preparations, follow moon cycles, the whole 9 yards.
Hmm.
Some folks even say the wines have a unique energy because of it.
Whoa,
Pretty cool, right?
it is. But our natural wine fans are loving this.
I bet.
But what about the techniques in the winery itself? How do they actually make the wine?
That's where it gets really interesting. It's this amazing mix of traditional methods and cutting-edge stuff.
Like what?
Some wineries still use gravity flow systems,
Mm-hmm.
super gentle, let those grapes speak for themselves. Others are experimenting with things like micro-oxygenation, basically, controlling tiny amounts of oxygen during aging.
To achieve what? What does that do?
Smooths out the tannins, makes the wine more approachable, especially the younger ones.
Huh. Fascinating. So whether you're a purist or a tech geek, there's something to discover here.
That's Virginia wine for you.
I'm already picturing the tasting notes. Talk flavors. What can we expect from Virginia wines?
Well, the reds. You're talking beautiful balance, fruit and acidity, not too heavy, cherries, blackberries, sometimes these savory notes, spice, even tobacco.
Interesting.
And the whites. It's a whole spectrum. Bright citrus, floral aromas. Some even have this flinty minerality.
Hold up, flinty.
Yeah. It's more of a sensation, like a subtle stony note. Adds complexity.
Never heard that one before.
Don't forget the rosies. Fresh, light, perfect for those warm Virginia afternoons.
You're making me want to book a flight right now.
You should.
And what about sparkling? Heard Virginia's making waves there too.
Oh, absolutely. Same method as champagne, and the quality, top-notch. Delicate bubbles, aromas of brioche, citrus, perfect for any celebration.
Wow. Okay, so we've got history, terroir, winemaking. But what about the experience of Virginia wine country? What makes it special?
It's not just rows of vines, you know. It's rolling hills, mountain views, historic architecture. Many wineries are on these designated trails. You can make a whole day of exploring.
So like a choose-your-own-adventure wine tour.
Exactly.
Sounds incredible. What are some of those standout trails?
Love the mountain wine trail, scenic drives, Blue Ridge Mountains, wineries tucked away with breathtaking views.
Love a good view.
Then there's the Valley Wine Trail, more about those charming towns, historic architecture, fertile valleys, perfect for growing grapes.
And if our listener's a water person,
Coastal Wine Trail is calling. Imagine sipping wine with views of the Chesapeake Bay. Pretty magical.
you had me at Chesapeake Bay.
And each trail has its own vibe, its own personality.
This is giving me serious wanderlust. But before we plan our imaginary road trip, let's talk future. What's next for Virginia wine?
Well, same challenges as everyone else, really. Climate change being the big one.
Yeah.
But Virginia winemakers, they're resilient. Always adapting, always experimenting. They're trying drought-resistant grapes, water conservation, really pushing the boundaries of sustainable viticulture.
So even with the challenges, there's a sense of optimism.
Oh, definitely. What's exciting is Virginia wine is still relatively young. There's so much room to grow, innovate, discover new and exciting wines. It's just the beginning.
This has been incredible, and I feel like we've only just dipped our toes in.
There's so much more to explore.
We've got to pause here for now.
All right.
But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more on the fascinating world of Virginia wine. Back again, diving deeper into Virginia wine.
We were just talking about the future, all those challenges, and how these winemakers are tackling them head on.
It's in their blood, you know.
What do you mean? That innovative spirit. They had to overcome so much in the past. It's like it's part of their DNA now. And it's not just talk. You see it in the vineyards themselves.
What kind of things are they doing differently? In the vineyards, I mean.
Everything. Take rootstock, for example. It's the foundation of the vine, right?
Okay, yeah.
They're carefully selecting varieties that can handle different soil types, diseases. It's not one size fits all.
So it's about giving each vine the best possible start.
Exactly. And then trellising, how they train the vines to grow, techniques to maximize sunlight, air circulation.
Important in a humid climate like Virginia.
Exactly. Helps prevent disease, ripens those grapes evenly.
So they're really paying attention to detail.
Every little thing. And pruning, too. Might seem counterintuitive, but cutting back the vines.
What's that do?
Concentrates the flavors in the grapes. Quality over quantity, always.
Like they're sculpting the vines to get the best fruit.
Perfect analogy. And of course, sustainability is huge now.
We talked about biodynamic earlier, but any specific examples? Which wineries are really leading the charge there?
Veritas Vineyard up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. They've been biodynamic for years. Healthy soil, balanced ecosystem, the whole deal.
What does that actually look like?
Herbal preparations,
Wow.
compost teas instead of chemicals, you name it. They're really going above and beyond.
Wow.
And King Family Vineyards in Crozet. They're big on water conservation, drip irrigation, rainwater harvesting. Seriously impressive stuff.
It makes you appreciate that bottle even more, knowing the care that goes into it from the ground up.
Right. It all starts in the vineyard. But let's move into the winery itself, the actual winemaking process. You mentioned that blend of tradition and innovation.
I'm curious about that. What are some of the traditional techniques they're still using in Virginia?
Well, a lot of wineries still hand harvest, picking the ripest grapes, being super gentle to avoid damage, and some still use gravity flow systems.
Instead of pumps.
Yep. Gentler on the wine, preserves those delicate aromas and flavors.
It's like they're handling the wine with kid gloves.
That's a great way to put it. But they're also open to new technology when it makes sense, like micro-oxygenation, for example.
You mentioned that before, but I'm still not quite clear on how it works. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. Basically, it introduces tiny amounts of oxygen to the wine during aging.
And that does what?
Softens the tannins, makes those reds smoother, especially when they're young, helps them mature gracefully.
So it's not about changing the wine, it's about enhancing it.
Exactly. Helping it reach its full potential. And that's what I love about Virginia winemakers. They're taking the best of both worlds, the old and the new.
To create wines that are both expressive of their terroir and incredibly delicious. Speaking of which, let's talk about the sensory experience of tasting Virginia wines. We've touched on the flavors, but what really stands out to you?
Balance in every style.
Yeah.
You get this harmony between the fruit, acidity, tannins, vibrant wines, refreshing, food-friendly.
So they're not just meant to be sipped on their own.
Oh, absolutely not. Virginia wines are made for the table. They pair beautifully with so many different cuisines.
What are some of your favorite pairings?
Ooh, so many. Virginia Chardonnay with Chesapeake Bay oysters. Perfection. Cabernet Franc with a hearty Virginia ham. Classic.
Now you're making me hungry.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Virginia wine is so intertwined with the state's culinary traditions. It's a perfect pairing.
Speaking of pairings, earlier you mentioned the Coastal Wine Trail. What makes it so unique compared to the other trails?
The Coastal Wine Trail is all about the water. You're driving along, ocean views, wineries, just steps from the bay.
Sounds idyllic.
And the wines themselves often have this saline mineral quality, like you can taste the ocean in the glass.
I love that.
But beyond the wine, it's just a beautiful, relaxing place to be. Kayaking, paddle boarding, historic lighthouses, or just relax on the beach with a bottle of Virginia wine.
Sign me up.
Right. And each trail offers something different. Mountain views, charming towns, historic architecture.
You mentioned the Eastern Shore Wine Trail too, right? What's that one like?
The Eastern Shore is a bit off the beaten path, like stepping back in time. Small, family-run wineries, lots of character.
It's amazing how much diversity there is within Virginia wine country.
Right. It's not just one thing. Romantic getaways, family adventures, just exploring the countryside. There's something for everyone.
We're back. Wrapping up our Virginia wine deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's been fun.
It has. You know, thinking back on everything,
Yeah.
Virginia wine really captures something special about the state itself, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the wine is telling the story of Virginia.
Totally. That sense of history, resilience, and I don't know, maybe a little Southern hospitality mixed in there too.
100%. Remember those early setbacks we talked about?
Mm.
Those colonists trying to make wine work?
Yeah.
That determination, it's still there. It's in the DNA of Virginia wine today.
They took those lemons and made some seriously good wine.
I love that. And it's not just about the past either. These winemakers, they're constantly innovating, experimenting.
Pushing the boundaries.
Exactly. They're not afraid to take risks, try new things. It keeps things interesting, keeps the industry moving forward.
That blend of tradition and innovation is what makes it so unique.
Mm.
And the quality is undeniable.
Virginia wines are winning awards left and right.
They're getting recognition all over the place. I think it's because they're embracing what makes them different.
Right. They're not trying to be Napa or Bordeaux. They're proud to be Virginia wine, and it shows.
So it's more than just making good wine. It's about telling the story of Virginia.
You got it. And that story is one of resilience, innovation, connection to the land. You taste it all in the glass.
It's funny, when I think of Virginia,
Yeah.
I usually think rolling hills, historic stuff.
Sweet tea on the porch swing.
Exactly. But now I'm adding vineyards to that picture. Those golden hills, the smell of grapes.
A glass of world-class Virginia wine.
Exactly. I think that's the power of Virginia wine. You know, it adds a whole other dimension to what the state has to offer. Another reason to visit, explore.
I agree. So what advice would you give to our listeners who are thinking about planning their own Virginia wine adventure?
Ooh, good question. I'd say first, be open to trying everything. Don't limit yourself to one grape or one style.
It's all about exploration.
Reds, whites, sparkling, dessert wines. Each region has its own personality, so get out there and experience those different wine trails. See what speaks to you.
And don't be afraid to go off the beaten path a little bit.
Yeah.
Some of the best wineries are those hidden gems.
The small, family-run places with tons of charm.
Talk to the winemakers, ask
Yeah.
questions, really get a feel for the place.
Soak it all in.
And of course, enjoy the wine. Savor every sip, let the flavors transport you.
Appreciate all the hard work and passion that goes into each bottle.
Perfectly said.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for our Virginia wine deep dive.
What a journey.
It really has been. To all our listeners out there, I hope this has inspired you to discover the amazing world of Virginia wine. Cheers.
Cheers.